welcome to Orchestra of Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Thank you for dropping by. So, this next video is about the Age of Sovereignty. We are continuing our history lesson of the eras and ages of the world. And I will admit, I take a very long time to give you very little amount of information, because I don't generally go through all of the ages of my world and tell people, but now's the time if you want to know. And who knows, a lot of this stuff might change or be very refined later, so maybe this is like a time capsule where in 10 years, everyone knows about Apsildon and the world of ColonnArch and its history, and they can come back to this channel and be like, that's all he had for those ages? No, it's not technically all I have, but it's most of what I have for these particular ages. Anyway, who knows, that might be interesting to some people. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. So, the Age of Sovereignty. We first get to, we'll see if this thing loads. Okay, as a little side note, my World Anvil account has so many articles. It's like 14,000 articles, 3.9 million words. Some categories just don't load. I had to spend like all evening yesterday moving so many articles from one category into two others because it was more content than could reasonably fit in even two categories, so I had to put it into 3 total. Anyway, just a lot. Sometimes it doesn't load. There's just so much here, which is why it's so hard to parse all this data. It's just there's so much. Oh, I need a team to help me read this to remind me what I wrote 3 years ago. Anyway, the Age of Sovereignty. The order and pairing of all things in each era is unconfirmed. Age of all things that oppose, finding their equilibrium or dominion. So, these ones are subject to change, definitely. The era of contrast. This is when the elements contrast, fight, and mingle, and they find their places in the various scapes. So, Earth clashes with air. It's like, where do we belong? We're all in this big topsy-turvy planet plane thing. Where's my home? Where's yours? So they just fight and clash and they move around and they eventually find out, oh, Earth is a little more negatively charged and air is more positively charged. I'll stay below, generally. I'll still have mountains. And you can stay above, generally. I mean, we'll still have caves and you can still go underground. Okay, and so they kind of separate, right? And it's the same thing with the other elements. That all happens in this era where they're all like, we're gonna just kind of like fight and find out where we belong. Then you have the era of conflict. This is ideals. Fiends versus celestials. Now we're at a point where the world is a little more, has more substance to it, more elements and things. So the fiends and celestials actually have enough to, pick up a rock or a piece of metal and shine it up to the star of order and sharpness and whatnot and like turn it into a sword and be like, I'm gonna stab you with that, right? So they actually build weapons. They have armor. This is where you have like your classic angels and fiends with their like pitchforks and armor and whatnot. The reason why they have those is because that's those are the weapons and armor made for them like by the stars. The stars shine on the earth and like turn that hunk of iron into a sword because it's shown on it with the star of sword, like the sword star, right? Because all the stars are essentially just portals to the plane of thought, and every thought that could ever exist is in the plane of thought, and so they just peek through into the world. And so there's a star for every thought, every concept, everything that could ever be, there's a star for, and so it shines on the world and makes those things, and people pick them up and slash each other with them. Yeah, the first world was very interesting, mythical place, right? The first world is generally, especially this early, generally not meant to be played. Like, all of the ages and eras are essentially meant to be played, but the first 2 ages are really hard to do that, because you're playing in what's essentially a small world, where it's like, they're just fiends and celestials and neutral elves and neutral giants. There are no kingdoms, no kings, no humans. There's not really a lot here to actually play, so it's technically playable, but not really in like a typical sense of a fantasy adventure going on adventures. That's not here for these eras. Anyway, you have that. You have your big wars with fiends and celestials. This isn't some constant thing that happens for the rest of time. It happened once. They had a war. They clash, and they separate, and they're like, you know what? We're better up here above as celestials. We're going to be positive. You stay down below, and they're like, yeah, we feel like a negative pull to be lower. This is and this is where we're going to be, right? And they look at each other like, I'm opposite to you, and I'm opposite to you. And so there's clash and conflict, but they're not like fighting each other. It's more like opposite. It's more like magnets that push each other away. And I know technically magnets that push each other away are of the same polarity, but this is magnetism. It's an example. It's an analogy. So anyway, they kind of push each other away, and there's not a cosmic conflict from then on for the rest of time. They're like, okay, we're different and we're going to stay that way. And then you have the era of contest. Giants contest each other and elves to establish kingdoms. Plus, some elves become other things. So yeah, this is where all the neutral ones that are left, they essentially start to fight and find out, okay, where are we, who are we, what are we going to be? They essentially take the rest of the world that the Fiends and Celestials haven't totally claimed. Like, this part over here in, like, the northern part of the world is Celestial territory. We're going to have these beautiful Celestial mountains and 14 different, 7 different suns in the sky and blah, blah, blah. And the Fiends are like, we're going to go to the southern hemisphere, and we're going to go underground, and we're going to, like, hang out with lava, because we like it. Stuff like that, where they kind of separate, and then all the rest of the world is just, taken and claimed by all the neutral ethereal beings. And sometimes they come into conflict, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's totally natural, like, oh, I'm being shown on by that star. I'm going to go over there where I can feel the light of that star better, and you can stay here where you have your star, right? Sometimes it's perfectly logical that I'm going to leave and you're going to have this kingdom, right? Sometimes they clash, all sorts of fun stuff, right? Then you have the era of intermingling, experimenting with Ethereum, Dream, and creating things. So, they start to, find out, oh, we live here, you live there, cool, that's settled. What do we do now? And so they start to experiment. They start to say, hey, all this Ethereum stuff, I mean, yeah, there's not like a ton of it in its raw form left, but there's still the core, the ethereal core of all of existence. We can go there and pull some out, and Ethereum is technically infinite. It just keeps replenishing itself, so we have an infinite supply. And there are also things like ethereal ley lines, which are like the blood vessels of the earth, where it's these big Ethereum tunnels that run through everything. And of course, it's Ethereum, so it doesn't necessarily have to have its own empty space. It runs through any other material or element or anything, so they can just tap into that, right? So there's still Ethereum available. So then they start to experiment. They start to find that, wait a minute, just raw Ethereum by itself is one thing, and then you shine stars on it, and it has thoughts in it, and that Ethereum with thoughts in it is technically what we call a soul. So we are all soul beings, and over time, with all the elements and the material everywhere, we have essentially also gained a kind of physical form. Like most of the ethereal beings at this point have some kind of body, and it's generally like humanoid, elven. This is where I guess we'll call them ethereal elves now, where after the era of legends and the core is established, you get to the age of sovereignty. Now they have actual physical bodies. But no one really calls them elves because there aren't any other races to contrast them to. It's like these are the regular elves, and then the really big elves, and then fiends and celestials, and then like the eldritch conglomeration elves. Anyway, or corrupted, or however they got that way. Lots of different ways the eldritch ones got where they were. So then they start to experiment, and they realize, okay, you take this, the concepts and whatnot, thoughts, and you put them in Ethereum, and that makes a soul. So we're beings of soul, and now we have some kind of body. Cool. But they realize that actually there's one other ingredient. It's will. It's essentially your own word, your own narrative. They're like, we have, free will from our ethereal soul and the thoughts in them that we get to, direct ourselves with. But there is our own narrative. Like, we get to speak things. We get to have our own internal narrative. We get to have our own thoughts. We get to direct it. We get to direct our thoughts. We have a free will, right? So I just call it narrative. Your own personal narrative. They're like, when you combine this Ethereum and thoughts and narrative, that's what a dream is. And to them, they don't have any waking world, right? Everything is a dream. To us, we look at that and say, oh, that's a dream, right? To them, they're like, oh, that's what reality is, right? Because to them, they're in a dream world. That is their reality. They've never known anything else. So Ethereum, thoughts, and narrative make dream. So they're living in one giant dream world. Everything there isn't technically real. It's all just Ethereum shined by stars turned into a thing. Like, the world hasn't woken up yet. It doesn't even know it's asleep. The difference between waking and sleeping hasn't even been invented yet. The world just is, but it is in a certain way that we, as humans watching the video in the real world, we view this as a waking world, as a real world. they are in something that we would consider to be very different. But to them, it's as real as anything else. So they intermingle, they start experimenting, they start finding that, oh, if I use my narrative, my will, I can actually shape the light in Ethereum and tell some light to leave and other light to come in, and I can actually shift things and I can direct things. And so they start to experiment with that, of how to do it, what it actually means, how much narrative, how powerful your narrative has to be, how much your own free will you have to have, what lights and thoughts and stars and whatnot in your own body that you're carrying, in your own soul that you're carrying technically, housed by your body, what you need in order to, cast certain spells, or really just to change the world around you with your narrative, right? No magic or casting or mages with robes yet. This is just natural. It's like, my words change the things around me. This is interesting, right? This is very proto and mystical. So, this is one thing where I have written next the emergence of dragons. Either they emerged or they were created, or maybe they were always there. I don't really know, but I know that the next era is called the era of dragons, and I know that dragons are there. At least as far as I know for now, because my lore changes all the time. I'm always updating things and moving them around. So for now, we're just going to go with what I have for now. It will likely change because dragons just appearing at this moment for no good reason doesn't really sit well with me. Nothing in my world really just happens for no good reason, but we'll go with it for now. So, dragons emerge. Okay, so what dragons are is essentially the combination of all four pillars, right? Now I've got to tell you what the four pillars are. The four pillars are freedom, power, status, and mystery. Everything in existence in my world, and also in the real world, falls under freedom, power, status, and or mystery. Falls under one or more of those pillars. Everything, all the desires of people, everything you want, everything characters in the world want, it falls under freedom, power, status, and or mystery, right? If people want to travel, like, oh yeah, I'd love to travel the world, it's freedom. People are like, oh yeah, I want money, or I want guns, or I want blah, 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 that's power. It's like, oh man, I wish I could have some friends, status. Status is like, I call it status, but you could also call it relationships, but that's just longer to say, so I say status, but it's like how you relate to people. It's all your various relationships. And then mystery, either uncovering mysteries or wanting to be mysterious yourself, right? So everything in the world falls under one or more of those, right? So because I realized that that's the way it worked in the real world, I was like, oh, that's how it works in my world, which has been such a backbone. Like there's a reason it's called the four pillars, because they are the four pillars of the whole world. Everything is supported by those four pillars. So anyway, yeah, knowing that, you can look for the four pillars in all my world building, and you'll see it everywhere. It's all over the place. So the dragons are essentially those bits of Ethereum that all four pillars, something tells me that the dragons kind of emerged way back there during the core, like before the Age of Sovereignty, that they didn't emerge now, they emerged when the core was established. That's interesting. Anyway, all right, so it's essentially when freedom and power and status and mystery perfectly combine in one spot, one being in this case, right? And so there's no one star for freedom, power, status, or mystery, because everything falls under freedom, power, status, and mystery. Essentially, 1/4 of all the stars, of all the concepts, fall under freedom. Another quarter under status, power, status, mystery. And so when all of those stars, the full combination of all the pillars, all the concepts, shine equally, they create one perfect being that has all of those things in spades at once, right? Those were the first dragons. Now, back in the day, when the world was still ethereal, those were just ethereal dragons. And then later, when the elements start coming in and you start to get material and all that stuff, I shouldn't call it material. I totally messed up by calling it material. It's all the elements. It's the mixing of the elements. Technically not material yet. If you watched it this far, then you'll know. It's not technically material yet. That comes later. It's just the combination of the elements. So, these ethereal, perfectly formed dragons, essentially, some start to get bodies of various elements and whatnot. And so you have your, pure fire dragons, or your tail's earth and your head is fire and whatnot, right? It's all kind of wishy-washy. But over time, they start to get more refined, where they mix the elements better, or they choose one element or another. It's the same thing that the elves do. So, That's what a dragon is. They have a lot of freedom, a lot of power, a lot of status, and a lot of mystery, right? They are the ultimate beings of the world. Even if they're just an ethereal shape flying. And which is why, if you look down at a dragon from the top view, it has 4 points. Your 2 wings and your head and tail, right? It's a big plus. It's like, yeah, 4 pillars, right? And if you look at what a dragon has, they can fly, some can burrow, they can go underwater, like they have lots of freedom, whole bunch of power. I don't even need to explain that. Status, the relationship, the command and respect and honor that a dragon has and can command, epic. And they're so mysterious. I go live in my cave, you never know where I am, like all that kind of stuff. Like they have all 4 of the pillars in spades. So then, you have the High Age. And this video has been going on for 15 minutes. So I'm going to end the era of sovereignty there. A quick recap. The elements clashed and fought. Separate. Oh, no, it's not just the elements themselves. Duh. How did I miss this? When the stars shine down, when enough stars are in the same spot, in the same, like ethereal elf, they get consciousness and they can, they're aware of themselves. Same thing when the stars shine down on the elements, like a hunk of rock, it becomes intelligent. Those are your elementals. Like, this wasn't just the elements fighting each other, it was living, conscious elementals fighting each other. And so, yeah, this is where you had your elemental sovereigns, who, like, Forgotten Realms, D&D 5e calls them genies. I don't, because a genie is a totally different thing. I don't like the fact that they took genies and made them elemental. No. So anyway, these are like actual elemental sovereigns. You could call them elder elementals. I think 5e has, I think the Monster Manual has some 4 big elemental, I forget what they call them, but it's like super big elementals. They have the Behemoth as one, I think, and the big old Phoenix as another. I forget the other 2. Yeah, stuff like that. Big and small, actual elementals fighting each other. And then actual fiends and celestials fighting each other. And then the giants and elves not necessarily fighting each other, but sometimes, differentiating, picking their spot, and then everyone's starting to experiment with word and narrative and find out that they can actually, it's a lucid dream, it's a waking dream. They're like, wait, our narrative actually affects things around us. And then this is where dragons, it's okay. So at this point, it's not really the emergence of dragons. It's more like the kind of not the dominance of dragons, but where dragons are like, we're now on the stage. Like, we've always been forming and being built in the background the whole time, and now we're here. Look at us, right? Something like that. Anyway, glad I figured that out. That's all for this video. The next video will be about the High Age, the 3rd age of the First World. There are only 4 ages of the First World. We are on the 3rd. We're almost done. Well, actually, we're halfway done, technically, through this video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Algorithm, Patreon, and we have a Discord channel. And y'all have a good day.